and tell us where you're joining from today, if you are so inclined. We will have the chat open throughout the session, and there is also Q&A. So please feel free to interact as much as humanly possible, and I will be asking some questions throughout the session as well. So we'll get you to utilise the chat where we can. There is a few of us in here today, so if we can keep our mics off, that would be awesome, just unless you're going to have a chat with us. So we're here today to look at the elevated capability framework that's been developed as a byproduct of the research that we've done under the VET Workforce Blueprint. Before we kick off, we'll just acknowledge our traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. I personally am joining you from the lands of the Yugambeh people on the beautiful Gold Coast, and it is stunning today, not a cloud in the sky, and it's just this beautiful blue. So I just want to pay my respects to the elders past and present, and I extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples joining us today. So just a bit of housekeeping before we jump in. Everyone's on mute, but please do keep yourselves on mute if you can throughout the session, just so that it's easy for everyone to hear what's happening. And of course, it helps with the recording. If you have any questions, like I said a moment ago, pop them in the Q&A. We'll utilise the chat throughout, but feel free to interact throughout the session, and I'll certainly try to get to all the questions and make sure we cover anything off. If we don't, we'll definitely follow it up with an email at the end. The session is being recorded today, obviously, because it will be part of our showcase and also be placed up on the website. So if you don't want to be on the screen, then you can keep your camera off. I believe it doesn't actually record the cameras. Am I right, Kaya? Just to make sure, so everyone knows?
That's right, yes.
Correct, thank you. Okay. And finally, live captions are available. If you'd like to use them, you can turn them on by using the captions option in your webinar toolbar. All right, so what are we looking at today? So as I said, it's the elevated framework. It's been developed throughout the Workforce Blueprint project and provides a more connected way of thinking about educator capability, professional development and career growth. So we tried to pull those together where possible. And it's designed to help out make the educator capability more visible, more structured and more practical across the VET sector. Obviously, we took a very energy-related spin on that, so we specifically drove down that particular industry. We'll introduce the thinking behind the elevated, walk through the framework and explore how it could be used for educators, managers and RTOs and sector stakeholders. We'll look at the capability domains, the practical toolkit and the opportunities to support educator development in ways that are flexible, relevant and future focused. We're also here to hear from you throughout the session, so please use the chat. We've talked about this a couple of times now. We'd like you to think about where the educator capability is under the most pressure and what support makes professional development easier to access and apply, and how the framework elevated could actually help with that. By the end of the session, we'll hope you have a clear sense of what elevated is, why it matters and how you can contribute to a stronger, more confident and future-ready VET workforce. So are my screens coming up? I just want to check. My slides changing?
No.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Okay.
Sorry. I will make sure I click on the right screen. So some of the responses that we had and the conversations that we had were really quite open and honest, engaging, which was amazing. And it was comments like this that really started us thinking about what the sector needs right now. So the question sitting at the heart of the energy transition, how do we support the educators who are preparing for the future workforce, and how do we shift them into the renewable sector? So taking them from what they know into where we actually need to be. So the clean energy transition is changing the skills, technologies and work practices required across the sector. But those changes do not only affect the industry, they also place new expectations of VET educators, trainers, managers and providers. And with them being not so much out of the industry, but aside to the industry, that actually there's a lot of complexity around doing that. So they're asked to keep pace with emerging tech, maintaining the industry currency, adapting to new delivery models, responding to the digital transformation, support diversity, and continue meeting quality and compliance expectations. So there's a lot to carry, especially in a system where that professional development can be fragmented, time poor, and difficult to connect to clear career pathways. And getting the time, I think, most importantly, to be able to just sit and understand what you need to do and where you need to take that is sometimes the hardest bit at all. And this is where ElevatED came in. We needed something that would sit around that for you. Get this to move. So why is it not working now? So educator capability matters now, and why supporting that is essential to preparing for our future workforce. They need to better access practical, relevant PD with stronger teaching and assessment support, clearer career pathways and systems that enable that ongoing capability and industry connection, because we know that our connection with industry is key to us being able to make all of this happen. There's just more than just attending a session. It's about building capability, and educator pressure is on delivery and assessment, and meeting those compliance obligations that we all know plenty much about, and ensuring students get the best possible experience. Sometimes those can be disparate, so they're pulling in all different directions. So how do we get some sort of unity for the educators in this? Perhaps we could take some guesswork out of keeping across the changes and how they actually apply, and we can frame the session in relation to workforce sustainability and the energy transition itself. So, to make sure that you're not falling asleep already with my voice going at you, let's do a quick poll. So what's the biggest challenge in maintaining your competency and currency today for those who are educators? If you're a manager, what are some of the slips, trips and falls that you see educators falling into? So just in the chat, if you want to type in. See? A and C. Yep. Definitely A seems to be a theme. And C. So if we're looking at finding the right provider and industry-based, I'm assuming it's around the nuances of renewables. There's no one out there doing that. Would I be right in that? Just type yes or no. Yep. Okay. Thanks, Bianca. Susan, okay. Something different. Just give a few seconds for people. Okay. Susan, do you want to take your mic off and just tell me what it is specifically for you? Deliver renewable.
Yeah, no problem. I did write it in the comments, but
thanks.
It was that we're currently delivering renewable training, and our trainers are contractors, electrical contractors that are out there installing solar and battery.
Yep. Okay, beautiful. Thank you. Solar is being delivered. Yeah. Okay. All right. So it's definitely about finding the right providers. That's what we're hearing from here. All right. So the research gave us a wealth of information, and the key findings were kind of around the same thing. So there's a plethora of PD available. Usually it's angled toward the vet sector or those compliance obligations around your educative practice, but we can't always connect with it at the right time, and when we do get a chance to do anything with the information we've gathered. So many organisations provide information or learning opportunities that connect us with the information we need. The missing link is the connection to what we do, how we implement it, and then reflecting on that change to make sure that it continues to support the student outcomes. The speed of change is mounting, and the complexity of the educator role being dual sector means complexity around what and when. And I don't think we give our educators enough credit in terms of we're actually asking them to sit into two industries. One is the industry itself, so electrical or UEE or whatever sort of sector or part of that you fit into, and then, of course, the education sector as well. The other thing we need to look at, of course, is what, if any, digital tools or emerging technologies and new delivery models are out there that we can make use of, or that maybe our students are actually expecting to engage with. We have a plethora of new students coming through that may have just left the school system. So if our educative practices don't keep pace with that, then we're actually disengaging the students before we even start.
Show you log this for your teaching currency.
So just jumping on to the next one, sorry, before we look at the framework itself, I want to start with the thinking that sits behind it. So ElevatED is built around our interconnected foundations. So our solid research was around including the existing models, what research is out there around professional development, both from Australia and overseas, and what you told us we needed. So we brought all of that information together and we started to really define what those domains were. So what were the areas that we know that will sit across the industry, whether it's electrical or not, but what sits across that vet industry and engagement in particular with the, for us, electrical, but the industry that's relevant. So the development levels came out of that as a way to sort of engage with knowing that someone might be at the very start of their career within their educative practice, and then someone might have been more experienced or have been in the process for some time. So that's where the levels came in, and understanding that depth of experience that you may have had. The learning cycle allows us to adopt a process that supports the identification, learning, adoption and reflection. So it's that action learning process. So how do we step people through that? And then shifting our focus from attending learning to building capability. So it's the application that drives true development. Some of those central questions that we were talking about was, what are the biggest gaps in the current educator professional development models? What's working and what's not? What are the educators being asked to do and to adapt where in those areas the fastest? Why is maintaining industry currency becoming more difficult? And how are digital tools, emerging tech, like we said before, and delivery models changing those educator roles, and what impact is that having, and how do we, it's a speed to market issue, right? It's how do we get up to speed with that and then get that information out to the market where it needs it the most. So when all the foundations are working together, capability becomes the driving force of our sector. Okay, then bringing all the information together, we collated and arranged the information to have a look at the best possible working model that we could. So we gathered the insights, we considered what was needed for design, and then developed a matrix that would drive that capability. And our focus was on practical, connected model that improves educational practice, supports individual growth, and then maintains connection with the industry. So you can see down the bottom in particular that response was around those domains, the levels, the learning cycle, but also having a process around recognising applied practice and having some implementation resources around that to support both implementation, but also building that capability or building the capacity for capability to be applied within our workplace. Okay, so another quick poll. What, in your opinion, is one capability educators will need more of in the next 5 years? New developments, yeah. Bianca, agreed. Working with AI robotics, yes, agreed, Susan. Digital capes, Dean. Digital. District capability of as an educator. Yes, okay, Ros, thank you. Increased pedagogical literacy, yeah, agreed, James. because I think the expectations of our students are changing from how they engage with education, and I'm not sure we're able to keep pace of that. Nathan, you're saying digital too. Mark, you're saying AI advantages and disadvantages. Do you want to just jump on the mic, Mark, and talk to me about that? Brett saying, yep, same thing. Mark, do you feel comfortable coming off mic to just explain that? Or Brett? How are you seeing AI being used? Or not yet? Yes, Brett, jump in.
Hey, Mel.
Hey.
I think it's just regarding to what the apprentices are using on the job site.
Yeah.
And then transitioning into their learning environment and it being very behind in the transition. Whereas it's like we should be sort of following what they're doing in industry and making that standard practice throughout their learning. This is specific for UEE over their 4 years sort of thing. So it builds into it. So it helps their capability and capacity as they go through their 4 years.
Yeah, agreed. So we've got a little bit of mismatch with the reluctance, I guess, to probably because we just haven't tested it yet, but the reluctance to implement AI into our educative practice. But I think that's more of a compliance issue, right, around authenticity and making sure that the person is actually competent, you know, when we sign off on that, making, you know, the determination of competence or not yet competence, whether or not we can truly say hand on heart, that's actually what that case is. But I think you're right, Brett, in that AI is being used increasingly in the workplace. So how do we keep pace with that? Paul's saying for new educators being able to learn from vet practitioners for how to teach a class. Yes, absolutely. And being able to recognise where AI is authentic. Ros saying digital capability, particularly the ability to use AI confidently, critically and ethically. Yes, I'm so glad someone said the ethical word. In teaching and assessment, educators will need to help learners use these tools productively while they're still maintaining authentic learning. Yes, agreed. It's a balance, and how do we support our educators to know how to navigate that balance, because it's not always black and white. And I think the ethical considerations is something that we need to really look at, because it's at the heart of what we're concerned around with authenticity, etc. You know, plagiarism, etc. How do we determine that? A lot of education colleges and RTOs, etc., are taking a fairly hard line. But the difficulty for us is that there's expectation from industry that we use it. So how do we do that? Thank you all. It's been great. All right, so looking at the actual model itself. So the strategic lenses that sit across, their intention is to shift and flex with the needs of the industry. They may be static, something like safety and compliance may always be there, but what would sit under that may actually shift and change depending on what we're looking at. But other things like sustainability and transition might change in how we look at that, or industry partnership. But equity inclusion, I think, is another one of those that might actually stay a little bit static. Although it'd be nice to think one day we actually don't have to worry about it because it's just part of our business as usual. The next on that left-hand side are the capability domains. So down are the 4 pillars of development in the vet sector, both mandated and the educational drivers, things like vocational and industry currency, teaching and assessment practice, digital and AI practice, leadership and sectoral contribution, and then that professional identity and growth. Across the top then, for entering, practicing, extending and leading, there are 4 levels in the other part of our matrix, and they reflect the stage of development that individuals move through. You may be at any level for any of these domains. And that's not to say that someone who is new to vet hasn't already come with a certain skills base. You know, if you've been in a supervisor role or if you've been in a mentoring role within the workplace, you may have started to develop some of these skills. So you may find yourself actually sitting on that spectrum against these, a bit like a spiky profile. It might be a little bit all over the shop. The final part is that learning cycle that sits down underneath all of the domains and the levels. And it's how we move through the development itself and build capability. So we identify, plan, engage, reflect, and then evidence. It's the outcome of these that make our educator or the trainer matrix. Excuse me. So we need to move through this to be able to then input that into our trainer matrix to sort of test, I guess, that we've actually developed. We've taken in new information, we've applied it, and then we've developed that. And we have some solid evidence to be able to back that up. So the guide moves you through to the framework and builds the operational capacity for both adoption and bedding down across the organisation. So application, like it is shown on the screen, is at the heart. So putting learning into practice every day. So what we're seeing is when we tested the model, we're looking at better teaching. So it's live delivery, developing observable teaching, etc. Better assessment. So the assessment tasks become more authentic, valid and consistent. Stronger learner support, so that interaction and the skill development within the classroom time is certainly a lot stronger. Industry relevance, there's a tighter connection with the industry and a more reflective practice. So what sometimes students say what they get taught is not necessarily what's reflective of what's happening in the industry itself. So we want to build that stronger connection. The greater educator confidence, so your own confidence in terms of being able to stand up in front of the classroom, not only from a teacher perspective, but also sort of backing yourself about your industry experience and being able to relay that to students and how that will look when when they're on the job. And that better team capability. So applying the learning shared through the resources, peer discussion and team systems lifts that collective practice. So it has that shared learning outcome across the team that you're working with. So within the model, within the framework itself, we've actually put together three major components. One is the framework itself, and it's a separate little document that can be utilised. If you're wanting to embed that, it can go up into the C-suite or the executive teams, and it will just give them an overview of the actual framework itself. And it will outline the standards and the capabilities or the expectations out of that framework. The guide is a separate document, so it will actually give the detail around operationalising the framework itself. It looks at implementation, development, stages of growth, and then we'll give you tips and hints about how to manage that and how to operationalise it or how to apply it on a day-to-day basis. It may also look at some slips and trips and falls and say, be careful of this or to do that. And I think over a period of time, we'll start to build that real operationalised look and feel for the framework itself. The last component is the tools. So there's forms and resources and an operational application within that suite of products. And then all three of those together actually build the framework. Much like our partnered framework, it's the same sort of model. It's about saying, what do we need to know about? And then what do we need to do to be able to make it happen? And then what tools do I need to be able to support that to myself to make it happen? So some of the things we looked at, or the questions we really considered when we were developing this, was what is the ElevatED framework designed to do? What are the core capability domains? How does the framework support both new and experienced educators? And that's where those levels were really teased out to be able to make sure that we can overlay the framework across the life of an educator, but also mirror, if you like, those life events that happen throughout the time that you are an educator. How does it connect professional development with career development? So we want to push those back together and say that the development that I have and the obligations in particular around compliance and professional development are not separate to where I want to go and what I want to do with my educative practice. Whether I want to go on and become management or I want to go on and be the CEO, that shouldn't matter. That professional development process should emulate that and actually help me and to drive me through into whatever career pathway I want to choose. So that's why we've connected the framework with the career pathways to sort of start to build that capacity back in to say, hey, this should be just one and the same. And then we also asked ourselves how RTOs or managers use the framework. So what do we need them to do? So that's why we've tried to pull it apart a little bit to sort of be able to just go in and pick up the bits and pieces that you need to be able to utilise the framework in the best possible way. Now, our hope is obviously that this is part of a system of continuous improvement. So how you might embed it into your RTO might shift and tweak over a period of time, because that's the point, is it fits within the RTO's sphere and of course obviously with the educators themselves, and make sure that it works for those people that are sitting in that particular realm. Another element of it was career progression, which I just wanted to spend a little bit of time on. And you can see that we've got the levels running across, so the entering, practicing, extending and leading. But then looking down at how we can start, how that will fall out or what that will look like when we're actually applying it on the job. So building teaching, assessment, safety and learner support foundations with real industry connection and support. That might look like an industry expert or a sessional trainer or a workplace or enterprise trainer. And the types of credentials you might be looking at, obviously with the starting point would be the certificate for in training and assessment. And then as you move through those levels, you would start to change maybe the credentials and also the examples and roles that you would be engaging with or trying to engage with as you progress through that. So why we put entering down as something that's kind of almost like a precursor to the vet sector is we really think that that's how we're going to be able to sustain the vet sector in the long term. We really need to engage people very early on. And we know that there's a lot of work going on, particularly at a national level, but also at a state level around how do we get people into the vet sector, but also how do we retain people in the vet sector, which obviously is what largely what the blueprint is about, but more so in terms of what are the strategies we're going to use to be able to do that. So not only was there a bunch of funding federally for the blueprint, but there was a bunch of funding also rolled out for each of the states, and you'll be starting to see how those projects will roll out over the coming year, I believe, or if they haven't already. So the other credential that we're looking at in terms, particularly from your educative side, is the Diploma of Vocational Education and Training. And that might not look like a full qualification. That may only be skill sets where you want to start to develop in a particular area. But I think the recent TAE changes, which was with the 22 package, I started to look at that and shape that a little bit more, particularly around a leadership experience and driving that within the vet sector rather than it just being go and doing a diploma of business. All right, your turn again. Quick poll. Which educator capability area needs the most support from your experience? Or within your RTO, or wherever you sit within there. Stephen, you created a transition to trainer program yourself and attracted possibly 4 new trainers from industry. Oh, that's brilliant. And some scholarships on the Cert 4. That's amazing, Stephen. Do you want to just tell us quickly about that? I'd really like to hear about it. Just come off mic. Come onto the mic.
Hey, Key, how you going?
Good, thank you.
I recently attended a Energy Skills Queensland meeting where there's always been discussion for 10 years about trainers. So I came back and contacted another RTO that does Cert 4s, and we put together a program. Just put it on LinkedIn and attracted 2, potentially 4 trainers that are interested in doing it. We've employed one now. He's a linesman who's going through his Cert 4. He's done his first 3-day block, so he's doing online Cert 4 and working with us in between. So, and the provider doing the Cert 4 provided 2 half scholarships. So the first 2 that got in got half scholarships, and then they'll negotiate with the other guys that are coming on board.
Okay, awesome. That's really good. So is it are you staging that over a period of time, or are you just putting them into the full course and then bringing them out? How is the delivery?
He's the guys, the one that started already has done a 3-day block with a Cert 4 provider, and then he's got another 5-day block through July, and then he's got another block in September. So it's over a 3 to 4 month period. Plus, he'll be working with us on a 2 to 3 days a week to do his practicals and learn. He's been training in industry for another like a network contractor, so he's just come in as to do his Cert 4 and formalise the whole process.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Oh, great. I love that. I'd like to see more of that sort of in and out, so that they were building confidence and capability over a period of time, rather than just sort of, here we go, off you go.
Yeah, no, we've put a supervision program in place, and we've allocated 4 trainers to sort of mentor him and work with him, and do full supervision plan and meetings before and after and all sorts of things. So it's all been tracked.
Oh, that's brilliant. Would you mind if we called you at some point next month, possibly?
Yeah,
that would be great. I'd love to hear about it more. That's great.
Too easy.
And yes, thank you, William. Assessor's eyes, absolutely. So B and C, I'm thinking, is the one. So I'm thinking teaching and assessment practices and digital capability. Am I on the right track? B and D, Ros. So teaching and assessment and innovation, or pathways?
Confidence with emerging tech and innovation and change capability.
Okay. All right. Perfect. It's really hard for the innovation and change, isn't it? Because we feel so clipped with the competencies and the frameworks that we work within, whether it be the training package, etc. Sometimes it's hard to drive innovation. Yeah, I agree, Brett. It does sound really supportive. B, C, and D, B, D, and A. So there's a little bit of everything, which is interesting. Okay. All right. Awesome. Thank you. So some of the other comments that we heard were things, particularly for people that had entered, thanks, Nathan, and got a little, I wouldn't say scared, but it just got overwhelming. And I think the compliance obligations in particular really make it difficult for people, because they're moving from one sector to another, which is a very big change. And then the compliance obligations are next world. And I'm an ex-compliance person and auditor, so I really, I know how complex that system is, and how trying to get people's head around that. And we don't always get it right. I mean, many RTOs try to embed practices that are almost like follow the bouncing ball, but it's not always as simple as that, particularly when you've got diverse sets of groups, etc., and training packages that change a lot. So this is something that really drove our concern. They're jumping in, but then they're getting out. And we did have an opportunity to talk to a couple of people around what made you fall out of their vet sector, what made you go back on the tools. And some of it was around just feeling comfortable, or a life event happened and they just had to get back on the tools. So there's a myriad of reasons why they might jump back into industry. But I think we've got enough interest. We've just got to be able to better support them through that entry process, I think, is what we came up with. So the implementation strategy. So if we looked at embedding something, sorry, Brett, we have 2 new foundation teachers that are tossing up whether or not to stick around teaching. Already, Brett, that's, so Brett, do you want to come on the mic? How long have they been in?
One will be 8 months and another one will be 6 months.
Gosh, that's not long at all, is it?
Nope. Especially for our small team up here.
Yeah.
We've only got 5 teachers and 2 of them are new foundation educators.
Yeah. And for those in TAFE Queensland, foundation educators are coming in and doing their TAE alongside delivery, so they're supporting other educators, obviously. But it's a lot to sort of be doing your Cert 4, as well as there's a lot of learning to do, let alone understanding the practices of an RTO as well. Ros, I started as a foundation teacher in 25. My year 1 ended in April 26 and my employment ended, still finishing material. Oh, wow, Ros. How did you go? So you stuck it out for a year?
I did. I've had some health issues alongside it. If I were to analyse a structural problem, as a foundation educator, you get the equivalent of a half day off per week to do your studies with pay. I had that as an apprentice in SEQEB or Energex back in the 80s to do my associate diploma. But the whole learning to become a teacher ramps up as your skill sets ramp up. Which means you end up kicking something down the road if your capacity or your personal health goes down. And you either kick down the road your ability to earn a living and support your family, or you kick down the road the TAE.
That's right.
And the TAE workload ramps up. You come in with the introductory subjects, and then it ramps up through the delivery and assessment. And some of my issues were you're there day to day, you're doing assessments, but how do you pull the information back out to do any sort of RPL process when the systems have got privacy, security, and so on? So I'm left marking simulated assessments and not using assessments I did in the day job. To complete my TAE. So there are some structural impediments. Perhaps face-to-face, getting the TAE done and over with earlier in that year would help a great deal, I think. And you're wearing two hats. The mentoring and everything else, you are wearing the hat needing competency as a foundation educator in your day-to-day job, trying to also be a student at the same time. And which way your performance is assessed. Are you there as a priority to get through the TAE, or are you there as a priority to work on the job that you're getting paid for? So there's and the structure of the foundation educator, the only thing that is enforceable in the industrial instrument is the 12 months, and then it's over. So I can't be employed because I haven't finished it. And likewise, I don't have an income unless I generate it in my own business. So there's a whole lot of risk to it. And I'm a reflective learner. I've done 2 trades. I've done an associate diploma, and I've done business studies at QUT as well. What I really struggled with, if I gave an analogy in my electronics trade, it's like an early circuit board. And if you had the different sections of the TAE placed around on that board and a whole bunch of fly wires over the top that show you how it integrates. And it's almost like someone's gone, oh, that integration and the theory behind it belongs up at a diploma level. We'll chop all that off and just make a person do all the compliance artifacts. But that's very difficult to integrate into a lifelong learner who is a STEM learner who's followed energy transfer. Mechanical energy flows through, electronics flows through, signals, everything. All of a sudden you're presented with a disjointed TAE, and your brain is going, I know this flows together, I know there's theory behind it, but in the timetable I'm not being asked to learn it, I'm being asked to learn these piecemeal bits. And my brain objected to adding that information in a disjointed fashion. So I've had to pull back and actually try and reverse engineer, for want of a better term, how this circuit board works, so that I can actually systemically fault find and work out how to add this education process and all this learning to myself if I perceive a future career and going up the pathway anywhere as an educator. And the other thing was that I guess I came in thinking that becoming a teacher was adding a train the trainer course to my 40 plus years of skill set, and to initially be enjoying teaching higher level subjects. But then when the rubber meets the road, you're down to teaching stage 1, which is appropriate for a foundation educator, because all of a sudden you're below a tutor in the award levels. Teachers are up further. Your job satisfaction goes down, as well as the complexity going up and the demands on your time. And with some demands on my health and personal life, I couldn't make it work in the time frame.
It's a lot to juggle, isn't it? Very much so. And we underplay the amount of learning that needs to happen alongside.
I think that had I my earning being in a familiar environment, electronics or electrical, whilst I was doing it, like night study, because all my stuff at QIT was night study. I originally started part-time on my own. I actually had my first skill set, not the presentation skill set, what do they call it now? Something equivalent.
Yeah, I know.
Allowing me to get before a classroom, pretty much done on my own, in my own business part-time. And I perceived it through the interview process as a curated traineeship whereby I wouldn't be overloaded, etc. But the reality is the vet sector is short on teachers everywhere.
Absolutely, no more so than our sector.
and now they're down me, and who knows how many others are trying to get through it. So I've been self-funding since April, working out questions of was it worth it, and your diagram where it showed the TAE as an entry level into an educational career mattered a great deal, because all of a sudden it showed me a part of the puzzle I was missing. I wasn't adding, like I've on the job training with apprentices and junior engineers for donkey's years, but it doesn't count. There's no credit towards your TAE for it. There's no way to formally produce that evidence, I guess, in a way that matches how the TAE requirements are done on training.gov.au. So you're really, I think the awareness is that it is a teaching career. You are actually being asked to leave your industry at the door and only top it up a week or two per year.
Yeah.
So you may have been an industry specialist, but you won't be necessarily working in that. So there's a whole lot of dimensions to it.
There is. Yeah, it's definitely complex. And Jeanette's saying here too that workplace tasks, I can hear myself. Oh, thanks, Roz. Workplace task outputs should be assessment evidence inputs and in a well-designed intern-based TAE. Yes, I agree, Jeanette. That structuring, more like an apprenticeship. I think Roz hit the nail on the head when we said TAE should be more of an apprenticeship model and flow through. I think it would work better. So bringing us back, implementation strategy must shift the institutional culture from extrinsic compliance, performing the bare minimum for audit readiness, to intrinsic capability, where the practice improvement drives excellence. So where capability is prioritised, compliance becomes a natural byproduct of good practice. And you'll often hear people talking about if we just focused on quality, the compliance would come with it. Susan, we had the same issue where an educator was completing their Cert 4 qual but unable to use the materials they're developing for the RTO as the RTO that delivered a number of units. Okay, that's interesting. So there were limitations around the evidence that they could supply. Okay, that's very interesting. Okay, so for before, which is pre-launch, which is essentially what we've been talking about, that secure, visible leadership endorsement from your CEO educational strategy lead. So complete the implementation readiness assessment to see what the L&D structures already exist, choose your internal ElevatED champions, and then distribute that educator self-assessment tool. So what you're doing is you're preparing people, you're doing that change ready map, getting people, this is going to change, this is going to come in, and then we'll start the process from there. Brett, that likely come down to the RTO wanting to make it easier to manage. Yes, that's right. It's about ease of assessment, very much. So when in implementing that framework, so month 1, so it's understanding and assessing, brief the educator teams on the 5 domains and the 4 levels. So now we're building information around what the framework is and how it would apply. That's the big connection piece that needs to be made. Have educators spend 30 to 45 minutes completing their baseline self-assessment. So where they're at, where they want to go, what's their projected career pathway, because that could actually change. Mapping both their development levels and their personal confidence levels. So against entering, practicing, extending and leading, do you feel you're high, medium or low? Month 2 might look like planning and prioritising, so 60-minute collaborative capability conversations with staff, building that 6 to 12-month professional development plan, whether that's an individual learning plan or a professional development plan, and then aggregate the data from that into a team capability heat map. So then that gives the manager that perspective and seeing, well, this is where I need to focus my energy, or if they're all sitting in this quadrant, how do I, what are we going to do about the others as well? So month 3 might be implementing and reviewing, so launching development activities, establish the peer-led community of practice. Educators begin trialling the new methods in the low-risk settings, and then collecting lightweight, authentic evidence of practice and change. And to make the shift there, we'll need some changes in the thinking and the culture, and this will drive that as well. So managers must pivot then from being more approvers of a professional development certificates to capability coaches. Now, in that shift, we need to also relook at how we think about learning. So if we take the old 70-20-10, which is about 70% should be on the job, so focus is on applied projects, taking an ASCO standard, how does it apply over what we're doing, where can we innovate? The 20% might be peer-based learning, so some sort of mentoring program or coaching program that would actually allow us to develop people alongside. And then 10% would be on the actual formal learning, which may be skill sets that extend beyond the Certificate 4 or into the Diploma of Training and Assessment, or VET. So I don't want to spend too much on implementation, but I just wanted to show you how quickly it actually could, particularly for the managers that may be in the group, how quickly it can actually map into or help to develop some of the other avenues that we have. So when we're looking at a managerial role, we've got development plans, we've got HR capabilities, we've got a whole host of other things that we need to look at, and this would actually encompass some of those as well. All right. In terms of the resources that we have available, and they're not available yet, but they're in production and will be made available on the website. And if you scan the QR code there, you'll actually be taken straight to the website. As we talked about, there's the framework, the guide, and the tools. They're the crux of the framework, and the body of work, or essentially everything we put in is in that body of work. But around that, we've produced a whole host of resources that help to season that information. So there's some best practice case studies, which we've looked at in across Australia, but also internationally. So how these types of frameworks have been utilised to develop better PD outcomes in many countries as well as our own. There's also information. We have some flyers that talk about career pathways, about currency, what and when. We talked about Sparked, which was one of the little pilot, little sub-projects that we had going on through ElevatED. And we do have another session later in the week around Sparked, and it was some really good outcomes about looking at the way we host and utilise PD. We tried a few different things, and I think it was actually really encouraging to see the results and to get the information that you need. Then finally, we have a couple of reports. One in particular is the consultation report, which just goes into more detail about the research that we did and all that consultation information. We've sort of compiled it into a snapshot to sort of give you that background about why we've developed the framework that is. That's okay, Patricia. Nice to see you again, sort of. All right. A quick chat. So just in time for responding, Patricia. So what makes professional development hard to access, complete, or apply in your context? I always thought we need elevator music for this. just something sitting in the background. I'm not going to sing because that will just hurt. Time in the working week to attend PD sessions. Yeah. It's hard to carve that off, or it competes with delivery time or assessment or admin time, which makes it very difficult. Stephen, so as we work with DNSP contractors, access to the network for out trainers is difficult to achieve. Yes. Nathan, managing admin tasks and assessment grading. Yes, that's right. Particularly if you have a period of time, like some TAFEs have a 21-hour or whatever the agreement says, but a block of time that they have to be face-to-face, and then everything else has to be squeezed around that. It's very difficult to get that balance. Anything else? Okay. PD often isn't very good, little modelling or practice feedback. Oh, that's a good observation, Ferg. Thank you. Time to be able to do admin prep. Yes, that's right, Paul. I agree. Brett, being able to be released for the currency is, yes, okay. So if your team is small, there are implications there as well. Yeah, especially if people are off sick and life events happen, right? So again, coming back to some of these statements that we heard, and all of the ones that you've seen throughout this are actually from the focus groups that we ran. We're kind of along the same lines. I know what to do as an electrician, but I really don't. I'm feeling out of place within this educational. And it's not because, like in Roz's experience, that I haven't done that before. It's just a new way of doing it. Certainly the assessment units are very complex, but I think we need to remember that the Cert 4s only are licensed to operate, and that's where the capability framework comes in, because it's about showing people very clearly that they might be starting here, but there's a lot of scope for development, and we can just chunk that down so that we can get you to a more confident and comfortable position within each element without necessarily trying to do everything, all the time. So assessment is complex and delivery is complex when you're looking at, across the range of units, particularly in the Certificate 3 in electrical. It's a huge amount of units to be able to get across, and the same delivery method just isn't always applicable to every. Paul's saying the C4 doesn't teach you how to teach. No, that's right. Yeah, unfortunately. It's changed a lot, Paul, over the years. But then the complexity is when we start to change the industry itself. So we kind of just feel we're getting our legs or feeling our legs in terms of knowing what I'm doing in educative practice, and then what I'm doing, as far as industry and how I'm translating that into the education. But then the industry changes, and then I'm sort of back where I started again, and suddenly I have to relearn my trade again. So I think we need to sort of benchmark that a little bit better and get some signposts in place. And that's where the framework came about. It was about helping to navigate that process and seeing career pathways as an always moving trajectory. It's not going to be static. You don't sort of, gone are the days of, I've got my job now, I can sit here for the rest of my life, So what shifts and turns do we need to make to be able to get, to keep us confident and capable? So I know I've answered a lot of the questions about the session, but I certainly I like my sessions to be interactive. So I haven't seen anything come up in the Q&A specifically, but if there's anyone would like to jump on and ask a question, I'd love to hear from you. Roz, conflict of interest policy. When I started last year, I maintained my electrical contracting business, including professional memberships, as it would be useful industry currency. That teachers working across small businesses to cross-certify. Yes, there is a lot of complexity around regulation, particularly licensing within the industry. 2,000 per year, so I was busy teaching and learning and not taking in jobs. Yes, absolutely. it's an expense difficult to justify. Yeah. You know, some of the best educators I've seen are the ones that really dedicate that time to going back into industry, which I think is the framework actually allows and so kind of supports in terms of being going back on the tools, basically. So they often have a side business. They don't do a lot, but they'll do little projects here and there. But the problem is then that's taking away again from health and family issues, which we talked about before. So it's really finding that balance. In my role in compliance and as an auditor, I heard time and time again about, I just don't know what's enough. I don't know where to go, what to do, how to start, where to start, etc. So again, the framework is about starting to build that capability and confidence over a period of time, rather than kind of throwing people in and just letting people swim. Is there any other questions? Anyone want to jump on the mic? We're nearly on time anyway. No? Okay. All right. If there's nothing else, we'll let you go a couple of minutes early, which is very much on trend for me. But thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. And please jump on the website and have a look at the Ignited resources. I will post that in the chat now. And we would love to see you at any of the other sessions up till the end of this week. Thank you.
Thanks, Melissa.
Thank you.